when I'm looking at this and I get this map, for me, I really focus on the university district, and I try to see, am I having a hot spot? Am I having an area I really need to focus on? You'll notice that little red circle up there, or not circle, whatever shape that is. Anyway, that is a target zone. So I've identified that in that area, we have I don't want to say a lot of crime, but we just have a lot of calls for service. And what that means is we need to put more officers in that area working more just to show them a presence, because we really don't want to have any blips in that area. So that would be an example of a target zone and how we approach it. The last 4 weeks, this would be violent crimes. Luckily, there's not very many. Optimally, we would like to have 0. But just kind of give you an example, I'll kind of pop through these because they're boring for most people to look at. We spend hours looking at them at the PD. But your burglaries, this would be just your general burglaries in the area. You can see in relation to NNU where all this stuff's happening at. This one I'm going to pause on. This is our grand theft autos. So for the last 4 weeks, this is too many grand theft autos for my liking, obviously. And hey, Mark, if you'll come back over to the camera to me, I'd like to segue into a campaign that we're going to be kicking off November 1st. Don't be a victim of warm-up theft. Part of the problem with we're seeing more blips is the time of year as it gets colder. And as it gets colder, people like to go out to their cars and start them and let them warm up, and then they leave them unattended. It's a crime of opportunity for somebody that's coming by to hop in the car and then drive across town. Typically, that's what we see. Not necessarily somebody that wants to keep the car for themselves, but they're trying to get from destination A to destination B. So what we're going to be doing as a police department is we've had these little flyers made up, and I know you probably can't see them, but if you see one on your vehicle, it's usually because you've left your car running, doors open, and it can be an easy pickoff for somebody that wants to come and take your car. So if you come out, it's just a general reminder to please don't start your car and leave it unattended, unsecured, so that somebody can then take it from you, making you a victim and creating a generation of reports too. So anyway, if you see that, that's all it is just a general reminder. So you'll be seeing those out in the community. Okay, Mark, if you can go back. Okay. See if this is working again. There we go. Okay, so this is the last 4 weeks thefts. Usually we have, this is probably the more prevalent call that we have that when it comes to these maps. It's more common, I should say. And so there is more blips, but honestly, that's actually not very bad compared to some of the months or some of the weeks we've had. It's actually pretty good. So I'll just leave that there, but anyway. So this is obviously an issue that concerns everybody in the city. This map is a map of the entire city. You can also see the Carter district there in pink and the Stampede district there in green. All the purple dots you see are traffic stops that officers have made. So the different color codes on them, some are all purple, some are half purple, and some are black and purple on the bottom there. And that just indicates whether or not somebody got a ticket, an oral warning, or a written warning. The other dots, the red, orange, green, and blue, would be traffic crashes. So that's where the crashes have occurred. We have noticed, as it would be obvious, that there's a direct correlation between how many purple dots there are and how many other dots there are. The more purple dots, the less orange, red, green, and blue dots we have. We've had times when calls for service were such or staffing was such that the purple dots kind of went way down. We didn't make very many traffic stops. Crashes almost instantly went right up. So there's a direct correlation. It's one of our most important projects. It's called TARP. You'll see that in just a second. But it's called traffic. It's a traffic project. And every single shift, every single day, every team hits the traffic projects. We try to obviously hit it in the morning commute and the afternoon commute best we can. A little bit more difficult in the afternoon because usually calls or service we're picking up. But this is something that every team works every single day. So we're trying to change behavior, driving behavior in the town, especially as we grow and we get more and more people on our roads. So this is the last 4 weeks of crashes in the University District. Without all the purple dots and stuff, it's not quite as dramatic, but it shows that we're actually making a pretty good difference. There's not as many crashes as there has been in the past. Obviously still too many. We prefer to have none. That's obviously our goal is to always have none, but it's not looking too bad for the last month. Let's see, it's not moving, Mark. Stuck again. Oh, there it went. Okay, so all those maps are things that we're working on throughout the month, every day, every week. And then once a month, the first Wednesday of each month, we have a mandatory CompStat meeting, which is chaired by the chief. At that CompStat meeting is all of the command staff, division supervisors, crime analysis, and honestly, anybody that wants to attend. We've had several different guests from council members, outside agencies, officers, line staff, shift supervisors. We encourage everybody to come to those meetings because it's just a matter of getting that information out and relaying it. The more people that are in the know, the better it is for us to be more effective. We sit down, we review the data. What we typically do is crime analysis will give an overview, and they will talk about all the stuff that they're seeing, and trends and updated numbers, data, statistics, all that kind of stuff, which we go over with a fine-tooth comb. And then we break it down, and each lieutenant will give an update on their respective district. Typically speaking, I get killed in that meeting because the university district is very large and it's the busiest district of all of them. But that's okay. So we go over the patterns of crime trends and see if there's anything we're missing. As much as we look at the data, we find out all the time that we don't know as much as we think we know about ourselves until we see the data. And we're constantly refining how we're pulling it, the type of reports they're putting out to us. It's very, very helpful for us as supervisors and, of course, as a line staff to go out and do something about it. When they're giving us this information, we can actually put it together and then say, hey, is this something we need to be looking deeper into, or is this nothing really that important? So then we would talk about the projects. Are we making progress on the projects? If not, why not? And if we have made progress and the problem's no longer there, we can report to the chief that, hey, we were able to successfully eradicate that issue, and we put it to bed, we've closed it out. Now, it doesn't mean this could be closed out forever, because sometimes we have to restart projects that we thought were solved, in which case we could activate them again, open them back up, and we start actively working them again. Real easy, it's not very hard. So that's that, and then the target zones. Are we making a difference in the target zones? Or how much time are we spending? Lieutenant Peck is able to pull that data from our Avail web to actually look at how many miles, how many hours we're spending in those target zones. So, and it's like hundreds of hours, thousands of miles. And then we look into, well, how many traffic stops are we making? Are we just driving around? Or are we actually making contact with people? So it's really easy to get into the fine weeds of it and see what we're actually doing. So each lieutenant then gives a report on their district. And it's simple, it's do your job, because if you better have some answers for questions. So quite often we'll have the chief or the captains asking us, well, what are you doing about this? What are you doing about that? And you need to know. You need to have an actual answer. It's a no joke that for the whole week that we're working. Prior to this, we're doing our research and doing our homework to make sure that we know what's going on so that we can then answer that, yes, we're doing our best effort and we have some different ideas or whatever it is that justifies what's happening. This is one of the maps we get, or the data sheets we get. In the area 2 there, that would be by the university district. It's the one in the middle. You can see that the crime is obviously trending in the right direction, all except the grand theft auto, which we alluded to before. Once again, that time of year, people warming up their cars, we see an uptick of that. The 24.3% is a little bit high. I don't like that, but everything else is trending in the right direction. Some of the numbers, like with robbery, you go 2 to 3 or 3 to 2, so it's down 33%. So it's a little bit, it looks bigger than what it really is, but it's good to be going in the right direction. That's the main thing I wanted to point out there. So what does this mean to you? So as a city as a whole, the Part 1 crimes are down 17.04% year to date. That's a great way to be going. Double-digit figure down, trending in the fewer crimes being committed. That means 273 fewer victims year to date in the city. That's amazing. That's just in the major crimes. That doesn't even attest to the smaller stuff that we also track. But just 273 less people that were victimized, 273 less reports, 273 less resources that were being used because of the effectiveness of the CompStat and how we're approaching fighting this crime. So, some of the successes in the University District, one of the big ones is the downtown. We work quite a bit with the Downtown Business Association. I meet with them regularly. We do some Q&A with them. They ask for help. I tell them what we can do, what we can't do. But we keep that ongoing open line of communication. It's been very effective. We've also put a lot of officers downtown, just whether they're driving or out on foot, going in and out of businesses. But just showing that nice presence as we try to revitalize downtown. We want to make sure we're keeping it clean, crime-free as much as possible, and making people feel welcome and safe to come down there and conduct business. I feel like it's made a big change in the last couple of years while we've been doing this. I know that the downtown's packed almost every evening, certainly on the weekends. So I think it's having a real positive effect, and we're also working with the businesses so they know that we're there to help them. You want to wait till the end? Or have you want to?
That's my question. Do we wait until you're done?
Yes, I'll have some Q&A for you at the end there, Councilman Rodriguez. One of the successes is the TARP. That's the Traffic Accident Reduction Patrol that we talked about earlier. We have worked that corridor that comes downtown and then on 12th to 2nd to 11th and so forth. That's a heavily traveled area. We do a lot of traffic enforcement there. We have seen the crashes come down. It's made a big difference, and so people are able to navigate to and from without crashing their cars, which is always a good thing. We've had several different residences, and I won't designate which ones they were, but we've had several that were designated to be targets. Some nefarious people that we worked them to the point of success, to where either they moved, they changed their way of living, or they've got a new place in the hotel called Canyon County Jail. But anyway, so we've had a lot of successes. No less than 4 or 5 just in my university district. Pretty happy about that. Certainly makes all the neighbors happy when they don't have to keep calling in and complaining about their neighbors and all the activities that's going on there. One of the big things too is the proactive and reactive ratios of calls. So when we started this, our goal was to be 80% proactive and 20% reactive. I don't think we're quite there yet, but we certainly made a lot of headway getting there. We are well over 50% of our time is spent on proactive stuff, which is good. It means we're out getting ahead of it instead of waiting for the phone call and take the report after people have been victimized. So if we can get ahead of this stuff, that's where we want to be. We want to spend most of our time being hunters out there looking for the bad things and stopping it before it ever happens so we don't have people being victims. So that's our goal. We're still trying for that 80%. We're not going to be satisfied with 60, 70, whatever. We want to just keep going as much as we can. So, and right now we're going down the right track. Some of the challenges with this type of policing, it's obviously a change in culture. Cops, like most people, don't like change when it comes to, well, I'm doing this, it's working, I'm good, thanks. So you have to educate your officers about why this is good, why it's working, and why it's good for them. This actually enables the officers to be more proactive, like I mentioned before, which is what they like. They like to have that free time to be that hunter. Well, we're basically just serving up our projects, our target zones, saying, here you go, here's where the problem's at, go out and deal with it. The other approach is obviously to educate the citizens of Nampa as to this is the type of policing we're going to do, so there's going to be a few changes when it comes to the response plan. So some of those low-level priority calls may not get an officer right away because we're prioritizing to the more important things, so we'll make a bigger impact as a whole and bring that crime down. And as the numbers show, we're certainly having a lot of success. One of the other challenges when we took this on was having clean data. So crime analysis, when we first started with them at the beginning of this, we'd never had crime analysis before. We soon found out how important it is to have good information going into your report management system. Without that good information, then they can't pull good analysis back, which gives us good data, good maps, all that kind of stuff. So we really don't know what's going on. So we've taken a lot of measures to make sure we clean up our reporting system, the way the officers are taking down information, the amount of information they're taking, and making sure that we're getting it all from the people that we're dealing with, whether it's victims, suspects, whatever. That's probably one of the most important things when it comes to CompStat is getting good data put into our report management system. And we spent a lot of time. I know Lieutenant Peck has really overhauled that system, and it's made a long ways, along with Nicole Fusselman as well. So where are we headed? Well, we truly do live our mission at the police department. You know, through integrity, teamwork, and excellence is our mission to respectfully protect and serve our community. Sorry, that was another technical thing in the audience. Anyway, we truly believe this, and every project we do, every time we talk about strategic goals, every time we try to achieve something, we always go back to those three things: integrity, teamwork, and excellence. And no matter what you're doing, there's a component of it in just our daily jobs, our long-term goals, short-term goals, everything. And so we really push that out. It's all over our building. We really do live it. We don't just put it up as words and just leave it. It's really important to us. CompStat is basically a tool. That's what it is for us. It's a means to an end, and it is quite effective. It maximizes your resources. Yeah, we'd like to have lots more stuff, but everybody else would too. So this is the best way to maximize the type of resources we have for the desired effect we're trying to get. And I think in the last couple of years that we've been using it, it's been highly effective. The data has shown it's just been crazy. So we're pretty happy with it so far. That being said, Councilman Rodriguez, you had some question?
Okay, so let's go back to the types of type 1 crime. Speak into the mic. Oh.
Just if you push that little button on the side there, it lights up. Oh. Nope, just push that button on the side there. It should be green.
Is it on?
Let me see. There.
Your finger is no different than mine.
I don't know, magic touch.
Okay, so this is for the command staff. Is that so? When I see the homicides and I see the rapes and the burglaries, I see numbers of 1. But what I don't see is the behavioral analysis of cause, and that concerns me because if we're dealing with, let's say, a homicide, 5 homicides. 1 is a drug-related. Number 2 is a domestic battery. Then that would to me would give us a better numbers of how to more or less handle that and how to prepare to handle that. So what I'm looking for is a behavioral analysis of each case broke down to drugs, anger management, all that stuff. So you know what your kind of suspect you're dealing with. And if the same commonality of every suspect, which, we deal with it all the time, that you could pinpoint and figure out who's doing the burglaries easier, whose connection is that coming from, other than that. What do you guys think? I think it's a great idea. I think we need to start doing it with this, especially with active shooters
Right. So
situations now.
I would tell you this, that in most of those investigations, we get to the root cause of why that thing occurred. Usually it's drugs, a lot of times it's gangs, both of which areas of issues we are addressing. We are seeing an uptick of gang activity for a lot of different reasons, and I have Officer Tluchek that could probably speak more intelligently on that. But without getting an expert in here, I can tell you that if we get down to the root cause of the investigation, we can find out what's causing it. And it's usually that same commonality as a drug problem, right? We know that. And a lot of the projects we have are drug related. And so as we address them and reduce those problems, everything else will come down the same. It kind of goes in waves that way. I think that's probably the best way to address it. I think most of the time we know the cause of it and why it's happening. It's an ongoing battle.
Okay, so do you have a program that...
Just push it quick.
Do you have a program that gives you that information? If you don't, is there a grant that we can get that will help you with the behavioral analysis?
I don't know if we have a behavior analysis program. That was in, no.
I think, from the 30,000-foot view of what we're talking about today, it's all about communication. So like your burglaries. So that was something that the analytical unit would look into. And when we have the chief's ComStat meeting, there's lots of communication that goes on before that. And so we would know, hey, this is the MO the burglars are seeing. We're starting to see a certain type of car getting broke into or certain property taken out of cars. And then we would focus that as a project in that area. Say it's in the university district. And maybe the analytical folks will tell us it's happening on Tuesday and Thursday nights between 3 and 5 p.m. We would put all of our resources into that area at that time looking for that specific crime during that time. And so it's the whole concept, I guess, of ComStat is smarter policing. And so with the resources that the city council has allotted us, I can tell you we're doing a great job putting our resources where the crime's at. As far as you're asking a little bit more deeper questions on like the homicides and stuff like that, whether it's a domestic or a drug case, I can tell you we have so few of those in Nampa, knock on wood, thank goodness, but we dissect those cases. We know the root cause of, why that crime occurred obviously after the fact on that, but there's constantly 4 or 5 times a day the analytical folks are putting out. It's real-time data is what this is that's coming out. And then we gather all that information once a month, have our chiefs meeting, and then that's when we sit down as a department and they give us, the analytical folks give us an overview. This is what Nampa looked like in the last month. Here's the crime trends that we're seeing. And then we formulate a game plan, what was successful, what wasn't successful, how, with the information that the reports are showing the analytical folks, how are we going to get ahead of that for the next month so we can drive that crime out of that area or out of that district. But as far as, and that's kind of a long answer for you, to answer your question, no, we do not have a program, and I'm not aware of a program that we could purchase that would give us the information. It's just, honestly, it comes down to good old-fashioned police work, looking through the reports, and finding out, you know, what the trend of the week or the trend of the month is in Nampa. You know, we can, through historical data, like the lieutenant says, we know that we're going to start seeing a lot of motor vehicle thefts just because of the time of the year. That's just happens year in and year out. So we know that's going to be happening. So something we're going to try different this year is to educate the public. Please don't leave your vehicles running outside of your view, or, you know, turn your electric start on and step back in for a few minutes, because we can tell them chances are that car is going to be found later that morning a couple blocks away. But we don't want to have to take, you know, have to go that route. You know, another thing that I think is important for the community to be aware of is we've started this CompStat model 3.5 years ago. And when we started this, we had 0 analytical people. The big thing was communication and data. We didn't have clean data, so maybe I'm calling it a burglary from a vehicle and he's calling it a theft from a motor vehicle. So our stats were all over the board. Now we have 3.5 analysts at our police department, and quite honestly, the rest of the city wants to, I mean, they're farmed out all the time, because if you don't have data and you don't know, have a direction, you don't know what you're looking for, it's like the lieutenant said at the beginning of the presentation, our officers know what they're going out for. They have a specific mission at the end of each briefing, what they're going to go out. They're not going to drive around aimlessly. He was talked a little bit about proactive versus reactive time, and that was the main goal I wanted as chief. Our officers were, I believe it was 72% of our time was 3.5 years ago was being reactive to crime. That's not the way you want to be as a police department. That means we're going out after the crime has occurred, we're taking the report, we're filing the report, we're just wasting a lot of people's time. Our goal as a city is to get ahead of the crime, right? I believe today we're at about 46 to 47% of our time is reactive, and 46%. So we're definitely trending in the right direction. When we talk to other police departments, for the life of me, I don't know why they're not doing this, because we can show them the success that we've had. And we're definitely going in the right way as a city. You know, we have good city council and mayor support. We're growing as a department. Those numbers shouldn't be the way that they are with as many people that are coming into this city. You know, everybody sees the growth and the new folks coming in. So you would, mathematically, your number should be going up as your crime's going up. We're down 17 point whatever percent it was year to date, and however, you know, many thousands of people have moved into this city. So we're doing a good job, and we've got the right people in the right places at the department. Kind of added on to your question, but had to give my 2 cents. So.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. Hey, yes, Councilor Muncie. For people to hear you. Just press it. It's actually on.
Okay. This is great information. Thank you. So you said that most of the crimes are relative or related to drugs. What's missing? What's the gap in our community where we see continual offenses and drug use?
So obviously drug use is the largest driver of most of this stuff. People with issues that also tie into some mental health issues that go hand in hand. Some of it is gang activity as well. We're seeing a little bit of uptick in that, which is also a driving force behind a lot of these. And some of it's just crimes of opportunity, you know, kids and whatnot. I don't know that anybody really knows the exact effect that COVID's had on all this, with kids being out of school. I know they're back in school now, but for a long time they weren't, and how that affected them. I think boredom was a driving force too. But the biggest thing we're seeing year in and year out is drug stuff, right? So all the thefts usually occur, and CID property crimes, the stuff they're seeing, those are the same people that our narcotics units are seeing, the same people that our line staff are seeing out there that are seeing on a repeated basis. So Obviously, there's different programs with the drug court system and the problem-solving court in Kenyon County. We have another, can't remember the name of that. What's that program, Lieutenant Shepard, that Corporal Hoeksema that leads? Yeah. So we're trying to get people some help. We're offering some, so when we encounter them, hey, look, here's some diversion programs that you can get, and trying to actually give them some options so that we're not just rearresting. So we're actually making a difference long-term. But does that kind of answer your question, or?
Do we have a big gap on prevention? 'Cause people are, how are we
The best,
trying to get upstream of that?
so the best prevention is the proactivity. Honestly, it really is. So our narcotics unit, and I don't know how much, I don't want to get too much into it, but they're having a hard time of having some of the cases they're investigating, having those deals come to Nampa. And I know that sounds crazy because we don't like to travel necessarily to look for the stuff. But some of the feedback we've gotten is that they don't want to do deals in Nampa because the Nampa police officers are everywhere. They're arresting everybody. That's the perception that they have, and it's true. We're out there being very, very active. So that's telling us that we're getting ahead of it, because being very proactive is what keeps criminals away. Just like the best customer service at a retail store is the best deterrent for shoplifting. Same thing here. Best customer service by police officers in the city, being out there, being proactive, making contacts with businesses, being seen, being active is the best preventive measure you can possibly do. Councilman Hatfield. Yes.
Yeah, I need to bring, thank you for that, Gene. Now I lost my train of thought. We don't live in a bubble here in Nampa, and we're talking about 3 different districts.
Yes.
All obviously under the purview of the Nampa Police Department. In the valley, well, Nampa in general is bisected by an interstate, so there's a lot of transient activity in and out of town all the time. So can you speak to interstate communication capabilities, valley-wide communication capabilities, as far as to alert you guys, to alert others if there's a problem person moving through town, how that works?
Yeah, so we actually do have a lot of communication with other agencies. A lot of it is through different, I don't want to say email groups, but we do have email groups that we communicate back and forth with, different programs and stuff. Lieutenant Kimball, you could probably speak to some of that stuff that some of your units are doing if you want to step up.
Sure. So some of the ways we're able to do that is through different intelligence groups. We work closely with the Idaho State Police Fusion Center, and that's a local, I want to say local, that's localized in the Treasure Valley, but it's a statewide intelligence group that we're part of. We have an intelligence officer that we send over there part-time to be part of that. So we're looking at information that comes through there. So we're looking at crime trends. We're looking not just at crime trends, but we're also looking at certain groups of people and certain individuals who are committing crimes. So we can disperse that information when that comes to us immediately. So when there's bulletins that comes out, or we can create bulletins and spread those out to us, to the community, when it has impact valley-wide or statewide.
That'd be a level of alert, like an Amber Alert, but it could.
Yes.
Yes.
So we're parts of groups of like Orcade and stuff that if they're seeing trends or like travel groups that are coming through with fraud, they put that on the alert, which we are a part of. We get that alert, and whether it can be immediate or it can be just, hey, be on the lookout type stuff. I know in my time in CID property, we actually caught some of those traveling groups that hit Boise, and they were gone before they got there, but they gave us a heads up, and so we caught them in the act right here in Nampa before they headed on out to Ontario and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of different programs like Lieutenant Kim was talking about that we work with daily, hand in hand with other agencies and state agencies.
And it works really well. And we give a couple examples of those recently with some of the more violent crimes that we've had, that we were able to catch those very quickly that traveled out of state within a matter of just a couple hours. We had recently a homicide that we were able to catch the suspect in that within 3 hours that traveled out of state, went south of Idaho, southeast of Idaho. And then we had a kidnapping a couple months ago that went southwest of Idaho that we caught within 3 hours. And that was with that communication, because we communicate very quickly, very rapidly, and we disperse that information through those systems.
I can tell you that communication, not just inside our agency, but working with other networking, other agencies, not just law enforcement, but just in general in the community, it's very, very important to our success here in Nampa. Yes, Jeff, go ahead. Yeah. Green mic, please.
Yeah, that was my question. How can the community and community leaders help you with CompStat, other than communicate, if you see something suspicious?
So I got to be honest with you, our community leaders have been very, very supportive of us. It obviously helps when you have results like this to show that our plan's working. So that's a good motivator, right? But just being in cooperation, on our part, having Ken and his team with crime analysis to come explain the information, to come explain what we're doing, lay it out in layman's terms, it's easy for them to understand and be like, okay, now I see why you want this, you want that, or why you need this in order to have the success you have. That's a big driver for us. I don't know if you want to talk more about that, Chief, or, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, honestly. It's just that.
I think it comes down to, again, back, hate to sound like a broken record, but communication. Whatever's happening at your business, you're there during the day. You know who belongs there. If somebody doesn't belong there, you need to call, and then we'll come out, we'll check out on the person, we'll figure out who they are, what they're doing in the area, and even if it's not a criminal offense, at least we have documented who's out there and stuff. And it's the same way with, subdivisions. You know who belongs in your subdivision. If there's a suspicious vehicle or something like that in there, you need to call. I just told you we have 60% more time now to go out there and check on those people and see what's going on. I mean, our goal at the police department is to be a proactive department. I think we're well on our way there. I think we have a ways to go yet. But I've told the mayor before, we can make this place look like Mayberry, way back when, and that's our goal, is to get out to be part of the community. I mean, everybody here lives in this community. We police the community that we live in, and so we want it to be like the rest of you. We want it to be a crime-free, the best we can community. And we're definitely going the right direction. So I would say, the businesses, our job is to communicate. And with the pandemic, our goal is to hold these meetings quarterly for each district. We held one meeting and then COVID hit, and so this is our first, or I guess our second attempt at one. I know we've had some difficulty today with some of the technology here, but we have got to tell the community what a good job we're doing. They need to know what their police department is doing for them. And I'm very proud to be the chief of this department because when we go to meetings around the state, I can look back and tell our crime's down. Nampa is one of the fastest growing communities in Idaho, but our crime is down here. And they're like, well, how are you skewing the stats? We have a baseline of stats. Our stats have not moved in 3.5 years. I couldn't have looked you in the eye 3.5 years ago and told you they're extremely accurate stats. I can tell you that now. Now, one day, I believe it was last year, I went in front of the city council with Ken Keene, and we told them that you're going to be lucky if you see a 2 or 3% decrease in crime. We're hoping that you'll still see a decrease because we had such massive effects on the first year. Well, 17.5%, we're still going down, and we're going to keep pushing really hard. And when that crime levels out and we've hit bottom, we're going to come up with new ideas to push it down even further. So it comes down to the business leaders in the community reporting information back to us. So, or coming up with ideas that you have that would work in your neighborhood or in your area, because we're pretty smart people, but we different ideas. That's one thing that we ask all the new officers that are coming from other agencies. We're hiring a lot of lateral people now, and we're asking them, what worked in your community? And maybe it'll work in Nampa. Sometimes there's no sense reinventing the wheel. If it's working in other agencies, we'll try it, and if it doesn't work for Nampa, we can always go back to the way we're doing it, but we're always trying and always changing at our department, and I think that's part of our success. So.
One thing I can tell you too, it's been nice, we've been able to start holding the Citizen Academy meeting, or programs again, which are very effective. A lot of the community business leaders and whatnot are sending representatives from their agencies in there. So we've had like people from Amazon and Autovol and whatnot. So they can come in and see what our agency's about, see what we're doing, and then that gives us a chance to start forming relationships. I talk to representatives from Amazon weekly. I know Autovol's had a big effect on us, just impressed upon them. And they're like, yeah, you're the type of community that we're living and working in. Just today, we had another meeting with point of contact for CWI. A new person said, hey, I want to start building a relationship with you, so we work together to see how much more effective we could be. We encourage that, and we invite him down here. When he said another agency wouldn't talk to him, you guys called me back, thanks. So we really are very proactive about reaching out to these businesses, like the Downtown Business Association, the HOAs, the next doors, or whatever it is, that anything we can utilize to make relationships and network, we are very proactive in that, because we know that working together is how we have success. So, yes, Mayor.
I don't have a question. I do have a comment. And my comment is that in recent conversations, in asking leaders outside of the state, when something succeeds or fails, what is the impetus for that? And the answer was people. And as I sat here and listened today, the reason we're successful in our community is because of the people. And I will say, you've talked about collaborations and listening, and it is about community. It's about all working together. But it also comes down to the people in our police department. Lieutenant McGuire, you've done an excellent job. Ken Keene, thank you for being the leader that got us going. Chief Huff, excellent leadership. To the entire leadership team, we have an amazing police department that we can all be extremely proud of. But we're here because of the people. It's because of you. It's because you're working hard, you're innovative, you were willing to think outside the box, right? And go after it. And we still need to continue to fund, and it's been tight on the funding, but you guys have worked well within the funding, and we will continue to be supportive. But what I love about our community is we support our police. I'm thankful for you guys, the work that you do. It's outstanding, and I think we can all be very proud of you and the work that you've done. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Yeah. So, well, that's kind of a drop mic moment right there. I think we're just calling it, isn't it? Now, just to build on that too, I tell you, every day we go out in the community, our officers, we really do feel that love from our community. They're very, very supportive, and we really appreciate that. Carmen, did you have a question from online?
A comment mostly to ask you to explain to our community how they can assist us in such a way to keep police officers proactive by them looking at our response plan and why we have that response plan, if you'd talk about that.
So our response plan is published on our website, correct, Carmen? Yes. Yeah. So the response plan is part of the whole CompStat model in order to free officers up. We've gotten to such a size in this city that getting the cat out of the tree is probably not a huge priority for us, unfortunately, for the kitty. We have to actually focus what's going to make the most bang for our buck with what resources we have. And so we have a response plan that doesn't want to ignore the needs of our community, but we have to prioritize like anything else. And so if we can put some things on the back burner just a bit to address something that's a little bit more important and have a much bigger effect, that's why the response plan is there. It's not that we don't want to go. Our officers are very busy. I know right now that our calls for service per officer, we are the busiest agency in the entire state. So it's not that we don't want to, we're very, very busy, but sometimes you just have to prioritize. So I would just say to the community, how you can help us is if you see something suspicious or something not right, please call it in. Don't think, oh, it's a bother. I hear that all the time. I don't want to bother you. That's what we're here for. You're not bothering us. We want you to call us so we can get ahead of it. If we get that suspicious activity, for example, early on, maybe it doesn't turn into a car theft or burglary or whatever. So I would just say to the community, how can you help? It's just be more interactive with us. Talk to us more, give us as much information as you possibly can. And understand that the response plan is in place for a bigger purpose, for the greater good of the community, not because we don't want to do something. So, any other questions, Carmen? Or? Okay. Other questions from anybody in the room? Anybody? Panel? Well, you got off easy. Some of you guys did. Wow. Sure. And Captain Schenkel's been sitting over there quiet all night. Yes, Chief.
Okay. We've been hearing about an uptick in gang activity.
So close, Officer Toluchek. Not quite.
What are we seeing? What do you think the drivers are? What do we need to do?
This is Officer Toluchek, one of our fantastic school resource officers and a gang specialist.
So gangs are really hard because they kind of ebb and flow in activity. From what we saw, I'm going to go anecdotally first. I work at East Valley Middle School as a school resource officer. So before COVID, like my 2019-2020 year, I saw a huge increase in my school, which actually bled outside. So when I saw that increase, I talked to Sergeant Cantrell, who is actually our gang expert and kind of my mentor for the gang stuff. And he started kind of researching with me, and we saw an increase. Once schools were out because of COVID, we saw a really huge increase in the community, I think because they weren't in school. And so they had more time to do things as groups like gangs do, right? So they always commit crimes together in groups. So it's generational and it's familial. Canyon County is a little different than any other county in the area because it's very familial. So we have generational gang membership. So what we're seeing is the kids of the gang members that I dealt with when I started 15 years ago are starting to affiliate themselves with different gangs. And then we're starting to see their parents, uncles, aunts get out of jail or prison and kind of encourage that because it is a familial, traditional thing of the family. So that's what we're seeing right now.
I
The
can
crimes that we're seeing are violent. So we're seeing younger gangsters. I dealt with 12, 13-year-olds in my school that were claiming gang membership. And they are committing the robberies, the car thefts, the stabbings, the shootings, the drive-bys. And the reason that's happening is because the adults obviously get in more trouble, so the juveniles will go out and commit these crimes because they don't have the severe consequences like adults would. So, and that's kind of how they do work for the gang too, to get into the gang. They do the work to rep the gang.
One thing I can tell you too is when they started seeing this uptick, boy, we started ramping up our efforts almost immediately. One of the worst things you can do is wait and have a pause and like, well, let's just see where it goes. We got right on it right away. And Jason got with Officer Toluchek and several other officers, and they've been very proactive and go out and doing different projects to get ahead of this again. Because like she said, it's generational, so it's probably going to be here a long time. But the best thing you can do is go out there and make a force, be a presence, and show them that you might ramp up, but so are we. We're ready for you. And that makes them want to go someplace else. But the response to it has been pretty quick.
Do you see with the school resource officers, though, when you can create a different level of belonging with kids versus, I mean, you can belong in good ways and in bad ways. If you can create that belonging, there's a boy who goes to East Valley who I know has said that the school resource officer was a huge, made a huge difference in his life.
Okay.
That would be you.
Good to know.
I don't hear things.
No, yeah, for sure.
You know, at that age, that impressionable age, 11, 12,
Right,
if they can feel like there's a sense of purpose and hope somewhere else,
sure.
then this.
Yeah, Councilman Mushy just mentioned that one of the kids that she was familiar with at East Valley had mentioned that sense of belonging to something else, and that Officer Toluchek had made a big impact on his or her life just by showing them different avenues of belonging and being important, being special. I'll tell you that most of our gang officers are school resource officers because for all the reasons she said. They're at the forefront of this battle, they see it quickly, and they can intervene, and they're very active in that matter.
So all of us secondary SROs especially, because that's when you kind of start seeing them really start to represent the gang. So we work really closely with each other because our kids are very nomadic. So they'll be at East Valley for a few months and then they'll move into, you know, West Boundaries or something like that. So we communicate quite a bit about kids moving back and forth. Officer Miller and I share kids, usually the kids that cause the most issues. So her and I work very closely together when my 8th graders move on to Skyview or which ones are in those boundaries. I make sure she knows what kind of issues, their names, what kind of issues I've had and the history I have with those kids. I think that's very important to share that information once they go on to the next level. It's very hard. Gangs are always here. Once we do this suppression and we get on them, they kind of go underground, but it's always here because, like I said, it's generational, right? And it's familial. It'll always be here. It just isn't as present once we get on them and start enforcing stuff. But they're always posting on social media. So instead of taking old-fashioned photos like they used to when I started before social media, now they're posting everything on social media, which is good and bad. So
The good thing for the community is that may always be here, but we'll always be here as well, so.
Can you speak at all to MS-13? Has there been any outside of the state influence here?
I can't speak to MS-13 specifically. MS-13 is part of the Sereno set, gang members, they're Southside, but no MS-13 that I know of here, but don't quote me on that. I don't think.
Most of the gang activity is homegrown?
Most of it is homegrown, yes. Yep.
Is there any other questions? Anything else online, Carmen? Sergeant Harwood, leader of our Selective Traffic Enforcement Program, otherwise known as STEP. You have anything to add? Any trends you're seeing, the battles you're fighting, or the good you're doing, all the training you guys have, all 5 of you?
No, just to kind of let the community know that, so we get lots of calls for traffic enforcement. Obviously, one of the top priorities for the city when it comes down to asking people what they'd like to see, something that we're affecting is traffic. Because everybody drives their cars, everybody goes to work, everybody picks up their kids, or has kids playing in the streets and out and about, so traffic is past them. So we try to go out and enforce specific areas. Again, like the Lieutenant talked about, we have project areas that we design based on ComStat. So when you see officers out in specific areas, we're there at specific times and locations where the numbers tell us we can best utilize our resources. We are limited as far as dedicated step officers. Currently, we have 5 dedicated step officers for the city of Nampa. We have motors that we utilize to go out into the public and to get us places cars can't, or a lot of times people don't see motors or they don't pay attention to us, and so we can enforce that traffic in a way because people think they get away with it not being seen, but we see them. Because we have an effect on traffic because we care about affecting traffic. Ultimately, what it comes down to is we just want people to know if a crash occurs, here's our policy. The state requires us to take a crash if it's $1,500 or more, and we'll go out and we'll take that crash and we'll help you if there's actually a crime that occurs, or if there's an injury, or if there is a road blockage, we will respond to that. If there's no crime, if it's less than $1,500 worth of damage, if there's no injury and the lanes are not blocked, we will encourage you and ask that you file that report online. That doesn't mean it's not being reported. It doesn't mean we don't use that stat to create project and target areas. That just means that we're not utilizing that resource at that location where we're not really needed based on what we've seen by resource utilization. So just so you kind of understand where we're coming from, if we do or do not respond to your crash or your location, that's how we utilize our resources and why we do what we do. But ultimately, when it comes to traffic, patrol is the backbone of our department, and our patrol guys really go out and do a vast majority of the work. We specialize in that, and we go out and we educate the public, and we have other resources, but patrol pushes and drives traffic enforcement in the department, which is why we utilize them and rely on them so much to help us with our projects and our target zones. So.
One thing I'll tell you is, like, I'm in charge of the day shift and early swing shift patrol units, and I asked them in the mornings to really partner with the step team to make it a force multiplier. So yes, they're the specialists. I want them to go out and augment their unit, basically, so that for the next half hour to an hour, it seems like we have a lot more traffic officers than what we really have before the calls for service start pouring in. One thing I'll tell you about the step unit, traffic unit step, whatever you want to call it, it's not just traffic enforcement and crashes. They also have school bus violations, which come in by the truckloads. Crosswalk enforcement that they do there, so that we can, hopefully reduce the amount of people getting injured in crosswalks. And I've been the dummy walking across the crosswalk, and trust me, we need more of that. Life flashed before my eyes a couple times. The guys at Larry Chevron told me I was crazy one time. Like, you're nuts. But yeah, so all that kind of stuff needs to happen. And so they're out doing not just making some traffic stops and taking crashes. They're doing a lot of different projects. Plus, they're trained to keep them up to snuff where they need to be too. So. Anything else? Anybody? Nothing still from? Okay. Captain Shankly, sure you don't want to talk? You haven't talked to you. All right. Well, if nobody else has anything, then I guess we'll bring this meeting to a close. Like I say again, I appreciate everybody online, virtual, and of course everybody here in the room tonight. So, and of course the panel, chief, captains, lieutenants, Officer Luchek, Harwood. So, thank you everybody for joining us.